Hey everyone, it's Rob Ryder. Today is Sunday, August 25th, 2019. The Deed of Declaration, something that John Wesley put together back in 1784, I believe it was. And basically it was his continuation of the legalizing of the Methodist way, and the reasons that he did it and so forth make a lot of sense, because it was his common law constitutional answer to law societies and the need of representation at law. Because in the United States, right, you have the right of free association, so there's no reason all the lawyers can't get together and form their own society. And they did. Go figure. Right? Well, John Wesley did the same thing. He made these small Christian societies. They could have been called classes. They got together once a week in a class, right? And really, they got together like on a Thursday, not on Sunday, right? So he didn't create a church. He created a religious organization that was attached to a church. In his case, the church was the Church of England. But he wasn't, running away from the Church of England. He wasn't a nonconformist. He was trying to evangelize the Church of England. And apparently they agreed because they, let him put these things into the Court of Chancery. And, John Wesley was a somebody. He was a student from or not a student, probably a professor of at Oxford. He was attached to Oxford, right, the oldest college in the world, and he was a priest for the Church of England. So he never left the Church of England, right? He didn't create a new church. He created a religious organization. So he's like a community organizer in many ways. And so why is this important? Well, if you've been following my videos along, and if you haven't, then this is even more meaningful to you, especially if you happen to be from a Methodist church. Right, a couple of videos ago, I did a video on the politics of faith, what has to do with these oaths, vows, and promises that our leaders apparently have taken, but when you look at them, they're not the right wording, and they did not use their full legal name. Now, I served 8 years in the military. I took an oath of office. It's in my full legal name. Then who are they that they would think they have authority over me if they didn't take their oath of office and their full legal name? Well, they don't. We just don't know what to do about it. And then I did a video on the DD-214 being fraud. That goes back to this thing that we have here about what Abraham Lincoln said about the Methodist Church in answer to an address that they gave to him in 1864. This was his response to their address. Nobly sustained as the government has been by all the churches, I would utter nothing which in the least appear invidious against any. Yet, without this, it may fairly be said that the Methodist Episcopal Church, not less devoted than the best, is, by its greater numbers, the most important of all. It is no fault in the others that the Methodist Church sends more soldiers to the field, more nurses to the hospital, and more prayers to heaven than any. God bless the Methodist Church, bless all the churches, and blessed be God who, in this our great trial, giveth us the churches. And so, apparently the Methodist Church is quite patriotic, and they send a lot of people in the military. Then there's a lot of military veterans that are Methodist that have a document that looks like this, the DD-214, which was the subject of this video. Does a DD-214 fraud equal UCMJ violation? Well, I would think it does. And that this document here, although it calls itself a DD-214, if you took it and the manuals that you would use to, fill it out so it's done properly, all the jots and tittles now, it doesn't take long to find out this thing is, it's invalidly done. So The result is I never was separated from the military. I'm still on some kind of unpaid leave or something. Because this JBK code here is supposed to be, when you look in the manual, it says, well, I was involuntarily discharged. Yet the enlistment code says that I can reenlist. This code would tell you that I'm barred from reenlistment. But this separation code and this narrative are written together in this Army regulation. And in that Army regulation, well, actually, no, it isn't. They're not in an Army regulation. They're in another manual. But they're written together, and they don't match on this document. So expiration term of service is not the narrative that goes with separation code JBK. There is no expiration term of service narrative used anywhere. And at the very beginning of the manual, it says they can't have any variation. They got to use the code and the narrative. So this whole thing is filled out incorrectly, right? So again, it may claim to be a DD-214 by its title, but in its reality of what it does, it's just an illegal document that doesn't have any legal value. And it's keeping me from having my entitlements because I don't have a damn DD-214. And everything else is just smoke and mirrors to hide the fact that that's what's happened. But it's what's happened. And so, I want to get this fixed. To me, this is a matter of bad faith. So how do we fix that? Well, I'm going to go ask the Methodist. Now, the thing on the oaths of office and so forth. Well, first of all, this was just here in October 4th, 2018. Supreme Court of the United States, wherein it said, the Supreme Court that is, more than 150 years ago, this court held that the courts may exercise no jurisdiction over matters that concern theological controversy or church discipline. That would have been in Watson versus Jones. Since then, the court has repeatedly reaffirmed this religious autonomy doctrine, explaining that the First Amendment guarantees a spirit of freedom for religious organizations. Well, that's what John Wesley was creating. And independence from secular control or manipulation. In short, power to decide for themselves, free from state interference, matters of church government, as well as those of faith and doctrine. Well, I say it's a matter of bad faith not to use your proper name on your oath of office. And so here's the congressional record from January 17, 2019. And this really isn't the proper day to do this. It should have been done on like January 3rd. But this is where they put it in. And I've shown this a number of times before that you get here towards the end of the day, January 17, 2019, after the adjournment for the day. Right, at 4 o'clock and 43 minutes, they adjourned. And yet, right after that, now, the House is adjourned till tomorrow, yet they're still doing business because now they're going to act like they're putting the oath of office members, resident commissioner, and delegates into the congressional record, which is one of their duties. The problem is it's not the proper oath of office. This oath has got a religious test. It says, "So help me God." Well, that would be in direct violation of the 6th article of the Constitution, right? That no religious test shall be required. And then we look at the way they use the names on here, and you'll soon see that people are using middle initials. Where's my favorites, right? They actually put a nickname in the middle of their name. C.A. Dutch. Rupsenberger. Right? How do these people, Earl L. Buddy Carter, Henry C. Hank Johnson Jr., all right, these names are not the names that these folks are recognized by. Now, I do see a few like Bradley Scott Schneider, that could be proper name, although he may have two middle names and is only using one. But the point is, if it isn't the name that's on your driver's license, right, then you didn't use your identity. And if you're not going to identify yourself on an oath of office, then how can you claim that you had any authority granted you? And so this is a matter of faith, right? This was unfaithfully done. And it goes right along with, in the book of discipline for the Methodist, right? They got 25 articles of religion, articles of faith, articles of religion. I think they're articles of religion. And number 23 is of rulers of the United States of America: the President, the Congress, the General Assemblies, governors, councils of the state. Delegates of the people are the rulers of the United States of America according to the division of power made them by the Constitution of the United States and by the Constitution of their respective states, and so forth and so on. Well, as I just shown, they're not using their full legal names, so there is no House of Representatives. And in this politics of faith, they show a number of different oaths from the state of Michigan that they're all done wrong. And so, since then I've been looking, well, who am I going to go take this to in the church? And this study has led me to do this video. Like, I need to go talk to the Methodists, because they organized themselves into a corporate body politic. Right? What about an oath? As we confess that vain and rash swearing is forbidden, Christian men, by our Lord Jesus Christ and James the Apostle, his apostle, so we judge that the Christian's religion doth not prohibit, but that a man may swear when a magistrate requireth, in a case of faith and charity, to be done according to the prophet's teaching in justice, judgment, and truth. And so I went and looked over the weekend here. The gal that just became the governor of Michigan, looked at her bio, and she says she's a Christian. Well, she took an oath, and she did it in faith. Who has jurisdiction over faith? The church does. Right? The courts don't. You're going to need to take this to the church. And so that's my plan. Take it to the church and tell them. What about the State Bar of Michigan? While we're here, the State Bar of Michigan is an association of members of the bar, organized and existing as a public body corporate, pursuant to powers of the Supreme Court over the bar of the state. Right? There. That's like being a municipality. Before I forget, if you can, donate. Pay it forward in faith, hope, and charity. You could do that by sending something to PayPal, robryder@AOL.com, or to myself, Robert Allen Bretluski, 10955 14 Mile Road Northeast, Rockford, Michigan, 49341. So I want you to stop and write that down. There's my email address. You want to email me something, and my phone number. Right? Because, I'm not hiding. I'm here every day trying to figure this out. And all I'm doing today is saying, well, over the last week, I'm looking at a number of documents having to do with the Methodist Church, for lack of a better term. But it really wasn't a church. It was a religious organization. That when all this stuff was done, it was being done in England. Right? So this has to do with that declaration, deed of declaration that John Wesley put in to the High Court of Chancery in 1784. Well, that ain't the court in Delaware. No, that's the court in England. Right? He would make up these model deeds, and he'd have everybody do it the same. Here's the model deed for Michigan. Right? They wrote an act, 1899. And it says, it shall be lawful for any number of members of the Methodist Episcopal Church of full age and not less than 9, with the consent of the presiding elder of the district in which the proposed church is to be located, to organize and procure the incorporation of a Methodist Episcopal lowercase church. Well, first of all, you had to be a member of something, of an Episcopal church, so you could incorporate an Episcopal church. But it says any number. right? So not less than 9. Well, you just said any number, so that not less than 9 can't have anything to do with how many people it takes. It must have something to do with the full age, right? Because they have child brides. And to be a bride, you have to be a party to a contract. So to be a party to a contract, you had to have been considered full age. So I think they're setting the age of 9 as being the age of full age, whatever it is. But this is the act in Michigan, and if you wanted to do this, right, here's the cookie cutter wording to do, and who you give it to the presiding elder. And it says, a person desiring to organize church shall execute and acknowledge before blah, 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 deeds, articles, association, whereby they shall agree to organize a church, which shall be governed by the discipline, rules, and usages of the Methodist Episcopal Church. That's what you're agreeing to. You're going to organize and say you're going to follow their discipline. To such articles, association shall be attached a certificate by the presiding elder, and so forth and so on. And then it says down here, the said articles of association shall be executed in duplicate. One such duplicate copy shall be retained by such corporation, and one copy filed with the Corporation and Securities Bureau of the Department of Commerce. Right? Well, the Department of Commerce is federal. There isn't any state Department of Commerce. So, if you file it with the Secretary of State, that would be incorrect. You got to file it with the Department of Commerce. Well, of course, I don't know who that is, but I have to imagine the elder does. So, either these are already, to be found, or you could start your own. That's my point. But the people that know how to do this are the elders. And you'll find that your state is broken up into districts of the Methodist Church, and each district has a superintendent, which is what they used to call the elders. Used to be called elders. Now they're called superintendents. And so I'm going to go to them and ask them if they can help out. Guess that's what this is all about. Do I need to start my own? Do I even need to be in one, or can I just come to you and say, look, I'm a Christian. Here's my baptismal certificate. Right? I need you to help me because, well, I've read your rules. Right? They got some general rules of Methodist Church. First, not to do any wrong, right? Like to take taking the name of God in vain. Well, that would be taking an invalid oath of office. That's taking God's name in vain. How about uncharitable, unprofitable conversation? Doing unto others what we would not want them to do unto us? You're talking about a court case, basically. And secondly, by doing good. So, if they knew how to correct the legal documents that we're using so that they would be properly done, well then, they would have a duty to help us out. And I'm sure they would. So, all of these things are online. You can go download them yourself, right? The general rules of the Methodist Church. Right? For their united societies. One nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Right? One society of Christians. This is actually the deed of declaration that he filed in 1784, which is an interesting year because in 1783 is the year that they signed the Treaty of Peace. It got ratified in 1784. And at that time, King George III was the King of England and the King of France. So he was the King of Protestant England and the King of Catholic France. And just as soon as it was signed, then the Roman Catholic Church was able to open up a diplomatic outpost, a nunciature, wherever the nuncio is, right? To have a nuncio, basically, have diplomatic ties to the United States. And John Wesley did this, and then he had some guys come over here and do some paperwork into the United States, and and there's just a lot happened in 1784. The uh, Northwest Ordinance, and so forth and so on. And so what he was doing was he was setting up a system of trust and trustees, and so that these things could continue on. First, they were given to him in trust, and when he died, after his life estate, he gave them to other trustees in trust who carried them forward, and they hold the titles to all the property. So that way, it's not it. When they hold the titles, then everything stays. What's the term they use? Forever, in perpetuity. When he got to declare who the members of the conference were, and the conference were the 100. Actually, had a name. The 100 legal. Oh, he had a name for them. It was over here. 100 legal. Legal 100, right? They were the ones that were going to take over after he died, and whoever was in that legal 100 would oversee all of these deeds that he had been putting into the Court of Chancery, and so forth and so on. And he was doing them for chapels with 2 P's, premises, chapels properly spelled, and premises, Methodist preaching houses. So he was organizing, right? Long and steady pain in John Wesley's organizational side, which made him come up with these model deeds. And he wanted everybody to do the deed the same, because when you got attorneys involved, well, they weren't looking out for your interest, they were looking out for their interest. He was lucky enough, because of his ties, right, to Oxford, to know different people and so forth. Because again, he's a high churchman from the University of Oxford. So the notion of necessity for legal status for Methodism came to Wesley by way of Thomas Coke. Coke had received such advice from fellow Welshman, a little-known barrister at Lincoln's Inn and St. Andrews, Holborn, by the name of John Maddox, who had been involved in one of the chapel disputes in Bristol in the Western Riding of Yorkshire. Right, so they knew what the problems were, because they had an issue. They got attorneys involved that said, well, this is how you would keep that from happening again, and they wrote a model deed. But the reason this particular attorney, was working with John may be because his father had been a Methodist. So chances are the attorney was a Methodist. But by and large, Wesley didn't have anything good to say about attorneys. In fact, he called him an honest attorney, an honest lawyer, was a black swan. They're very hard to find. I talked about Wesley would get in and negotiate between the parties. It's like, well, that's what the church is supposed to do, right? So he was living the Christian life. And he didn't start another church. He never left the Church of England. He just made societies of men and attached them to the Church of England. Can it not be said in any Protestant country, there is a society of men among us, bred up from their youth in the art of proving, according as they are paid by words multiplied for the purposes, that white is black and black is white. Right? That's what he thought of attorneys. A lawyer who does not finish his client's suit as soon as it can be done, I can't allow to have more honesty than if he robbed me on the highway. And but at the very end of this, let me see what else. So an interesting thing about this deed he wrote, some of his sentences were 181 word long, right? They didn't use any punctuation. And so he didn't know how to do this. He had to have an attorney do it. But he did it in such a way that it was accepted by the High Court of Chancery in England. And, once it gets in there, well, now you're protected by the Queen because the Crown has agreed. Right? Conference of the People called Methodist. Hath been yearly. Conference of the People said people called Methodist. In other words, Wesley would identify, as he does in the fourth paragraph, those preachers, the legal 100, who would constitute the annual conference, right? Who makes up the conference? The legal 100. While the remainder, although not conference members, would continue to preach in Methodist chapels. And what he did is he said who could preach in a Methodist capital. So it was either somebody he said could be there, or it had to be a priest of the English Church, or the Church of England. But he created this office called preachers and expounders, which weren't ordained ministers of the Church of England. They were lay ministers. And so he really got the laity involved in the church. Again, it proves true with the entire document the need of the legal mind to dwell upon every possible consideration, which is, why we shouldn't do it. We should have somebody do it once, get it done so it's right, and then we just use that system. Well, I'm hoping, that's what the Methodists have, is they have all the documents to use. If you want to do it right, well, use this document. Don't use the documents that the court puts out because they're all attorneys. In 1789, when Wesley introduced the Methodist Church at another version of the deed, construction, maintenance of Methodist preaching houses, he indicated the document would have been drawn up by three of the most eminent. He indicated the document had been drawn up by three of the most eminent lawyers in London. Whoever therefore objects to it only betrays his own ignorance. That's funny, right? If you object to it, you prove you're not ignorant because you're saying, well, we got three attorneys that just did something. You better pay attention. Thus, on Wednesday in 1759, London, he responded to requests to read a chancery bill in which A.B. tells C.D. that one who owed him 30 pounds wanted to borrow 30 more and asked whether he thought the eighth part of such a ship then at sea was sufficient security. He said he thought it was. Right? So somebody's taken a business question to John Wesley. Right? So is that what the Methodist Church is? Is it a Christian's business advisor? Is it our advocate? It's be interesting to find out. And then they talked about, all the pieces of paper they used and so forth and so on. And came upon a prisoner Cass who had been involved in smuggling gin and brandy, which brought him attention. Another chancery bill, a hideous monster in Wesley's terms. Okay. It everywhere calls meeting house, name I particularly object to. So this is really all I'm going to get into today. For these reasons, I'm going to go talk to the Methodist, show them like a DD 214, or show them a oath of office that's not been done properly, or show them a foreclosure document to say this is the complaint that's been put in and they didn't use my full legal name, and and say, can you help me out? Right? But the people that would seem to be in the know about this stuff are called the superintendents. So, hey, Yeah, hang on just a second. I'm going to pull that up real quick. Okay, so here is the Michigan Conference. I guess every state has their own conference, and it's broken into districts. Right, here's all the different districts, and each one shows the superintendent, the executive assistant. Yeah, I got it. Grand Rapids, that must be mine, Midwest District. Yeah, we even got our own website. Right, Margie Crawford's the superintendent. Liz Bodie is the executive assistant. And just quickly look at their website. Yeah, there's my superintendent and my executive assistant. Okay, so that's who I'm going to contact and ask them about, some things to do with the law, some things to do with what they said, right? Because the Methodists, say that their book of discipline is the law. So they say that we should be following those who, right, according to the division of power made to them by the Constitution. Then we need to point out that the people that are claiming this authority don't have the authority because they didn't follow the procedures. Right? They did something unlawful. They're all the people, almost everybody that seems to be a politician is an attorney. Right? Well, those are those other societies that John Wesley was not very fond of. So, I don't know that the people of today at the United Methodist Church know that these people haven't taken a proper oath to office. So I'm going to go tell them. Because it's a cause of faith and charity. I'll see how I can get around that. Okay, well, that's where I'm going to leave it today. I just quickly wanted to say a little bit of something about the Methodist way, that it really isn't set up as a church as much as it's set up as societies. And those societies may have a chapel where they do services, right? But the main thing that we're talking about was not what you did on Sunday, but what you did on Thursday, or whatever day it ended up being, when people got together to have their studies. In fact, I may talk about that for just a second, because that was on here. This is in the general rules. So in the later end of 1739, 8 or 10 persons came to Mr. Wesley in London who appeared to be deeply convinced of sin and earnestly groaning for redemption. They desired, as did 2 or 3 more the next day, that he would spend some time with them in prayer and advise them how to flee from the wrath to come, which they saw continually hanging over their heads. That he might have more time for this great work, he appointed a day when they might all come together, which from henceforth they did every week, namely on Thursday in the evening. To these and to many others, many more, as desired to join with them, for the number increased daily, he gave those advices from time to time which he judged most needful for them. And they always concluded their meeting with prayer suited to their several necessities. Right? Well, that would be a petition. It sounds to me like these people got together writing up petitions. Right? This is the rise of the United Society, first in Europe and then in America. The United Society. United by what? By Christian belief. Right? The smaller companies were called classes. There were about 12 persons in a class, one of whom is styled the leader. It was his duty, right? And then the leader had duties to act as a steward. And if you're a good steward with a little, you can be a good steward with more. Things to stay away from. Good deeds to do. And then spread the gospel. So that's what's supposed to happen at these classes. They get together on a Saturday or on a, during the week. I don't know if they still do it on Thursday or not, but that's how it started back in the day. Right? He wasn't competing with Sunday. Sunday was, for him, the day at the Church of England. And Thursday was his day with the United Society, listening to whatever they had and giving them an answer. So, very good. I hope you all have a great day, and I'll let you know what I find out. And we'll go from there. But if you could, to help me out so I can continue to do this, please do donate. Good time to stop and do it right now. I appreciate it. Okay, y'all have a great day. See you.